I sat in my office in Portland and listened to 43 voicemails from my family. These were people I had not spoken to since I walked out of my mother's house with a single suitcase and almost no money. Every single message asked me for a favor, but not a single one said they were sorry. Welcome back to Payback Stories. I'm Melissa, and if you enjoy stories about family drama, betrayal, and karma finally catching up, make sure to hit subscribe and drop a comment. Let's get into it. The night everything fell apart was Thanksgiving, 5 years ago. I was 23 years old, living in my hometown in Ohio. It was a small town where everyone knew each other, and gossip was the primary form of entertainment. I worked 2 jobs to support myself. I waited tables at a local Italian restaurant and answered phones at a real estate office during the day. I saved almost everything I earned. My older sister, Ashley, had just been promoted at the insurance firm where she worked. At Thanksgiving dinner, my mother, Susan, stood up at the head of the table. We had 15 relatives over. My mother raised her glass and gave a speech about how proud she was of Ashley. Everyone at the table clapped. I clapped too. Nobody asked me how my jobs were going. Nobody asked about my plans to go back to school. I was completely ignored. I had been planning to ask a specific question that night. I waited until everyone was finished eating and the plates were being cleared. The table was loud with multiple conversations happening at once. "Mom," I said, "I wanted to ask about the education fund from Grandma Margaret. She told me she set up accounts for both of us before she passed away." The table got very quiet. People stopped talking and looked at me. My mother put her cup down on the table. She looked at me, and then she looked around at the rest of our relatives. "This is exactly what I have been dealing with," my mother said. "She has been acting completely erratic for the last few months." I did not say anything back. I just sat there while everyone stared at me. My Aunt Nancy reached over and put her hand on my arm. "Your mother just wants what is best for you," Nancy told me. I stood up from the table. I walked into the kitchen and started washing the dishes. I did this at every family gathering. I cleaned up the kitchen while everyone else sat in the living room and talked. I turned on the water, but I could still hear people talking in the dining room. My mother was talking to my other aunt, Barbara. "Margaret's money went to pay for Ashley's sorority fees and her new car," my mother said. "Melissa does not need it. She is not going to college anyway." I turned the water off. Grandma Margaret had set up an education fund for me and my sister. It was $12,000 for each of us. Grandma Margaret told me about this a few years before she died. She said the money was just for me, and no one else was allowed to touch it. I walked back into the dining room. "That money was mine," I told my mother. "Grandma Margaret left it for me. You did not have the right to take it." My mother did not look embarrassed. She just looked at me. "You are making a huge deal out of nothing, Melissa," my mother said. "You always make everything about money." "I am asking about the $12,000 that was left in my name," I said. "You are just trying to stir up trouble," she told me. About 10 minutes later, my mother asked everyone to come into the living room. I knew exactly what was going to happen. My mother liked to make a scene in front of an audience. She stood in the middle of the room and looked at our relatives. "I tried to keep this private," my mother said, "but you all need to know. Melissa is not well. She is having serious mental health issues. I have been trying to manage it, but look at how she is acting tonight." She pointed at me. I looked at my father, Robert. He was sitting in his chair, looking down at the floor. He did not say a word to defend me. I looked at my younger brother, Jason. He was standing by the door. He nodded at my mother in agreement. I looked at Ashley. She was looking at her phone. Out of all the relatives in that room, not a single person asked me if I was okay or told my mother she was out of line. I went upstairs to my bedroom. I packed one suitcase with my clothes and my winter coat. I took the cash I had saved from my waitressing tips, which was a little over $200. I also packed a small wooden box that Grandma Margaret had given me before she died. I had kept it on my dresser, but I had never opened it. I walked downstairs and went to the front door. "If you leave this house, do not come back," my mother said. I opened the door and walked out. I did not say anything to her. It was snowing outside. I walked to the bus station on the highway. I asked the person at the ticket counter for the furthest ticket I could buy with the cash I had. The ticket I bought was for Portland, Oregon. I rode on a Greyhound bus for 38 hours. I kept my suitcase next to me and the wooden box on my lap. I did not sleep much. I just looked out the window at the highway. A woman sitting next to me offered me part of her lunch, and I took it because I could not afford to buy food at the rest stops. When I arrived in Portland, I had no money left and nowhere to live. I stayed at a women's shelter for the first few nights. After that, I moved into a cheap hostel. I had no credit history and no references in the state. I spent every day looking for a job. After 2 weeks, I was hired as a receptionist at a small consulting firm called Elizabeth and Associates. It was an office with 8 employees. The firm helped local communities apply for development grants. My job was just answering the phones and sorting the mail, but it paid enough for me to survive. A few weeks after I started the job, I logged onto Facebook. I went to our family page. My mother had posted a long status update. "Please keep Melissa in your prayers," the post said. "She is in a residential facility getting the professional help she needs. We love her and hope she gets better." There were over 100 reactions to the post. People left comments telling my mother how strong she was. My brother Jason left a comment saying I had always been unstable. I deleted my Facebook account that night, and I did not look at it again for years. Living with no support system in a new city was very difficult. I had no emergency contact to write down on my medical forms. When I got sick, I just stayed in bed because I could not afford a doctor. I lived with the knowledge that my mother was telling everyone in our hometown that I was locked in a psychiatric facility, and I had no way to correct the record. But living in Portland was also the first time in my life I did not have to listen to my mother criticize me every day. At work, my boss, Elizabeth, noticed my work ethic. During my first month, I stayed late and reorganized the entire client filing system. No one told me to do it. The files were just out of order, and I wanted to fix them. Elizabeth stopped by my desk a few days later. "You fixed 3 years of client files in a week," Elizabeth told me. "Why did you do that?" "I like things to be organized," I said. Elizabeth pulled up a chair next to my desk. "Tell me what else in the office needs to be fixed," she asked. While I was working in Portland, my mother was maintaining her lie back in Ohio. I learned the details much later. My mother told the people at her church that I had suffered a complete breakdown. She never named the facility I was supposedly in. My sister Ashley took over the apartment I had been renting back home. She sold the furniture I had left behind and told the landlord I abandoned the lease. My father handled questions from the neighbors by acting sad and saying they were just hoping I was safe. Jason posted vague statuses about me on social media. He wrote things about how family was about loyalty and how some people run away from their problems. That was the official version of my life back home. I was a tragedy they used to get sympathy from the neighbors. During my second year in Portland, Elizabeth gave me a small grant application to manage. I reviewed the budget and found a way to save the client money. I finished the project early. Elizabeth read my work and immediately gave me a second project to manage. I decided to enroll in an online business administration program at a local university. I worked at the firm during the day and took classes on my laptop at night. I paid for my classes using my paychecks, so I did not have to take out loans. I rented a room in an apartment with a roommate named Mark. He worked the night shift, so we rarely saw each other. I cooked cheap food like rice and beans. I bought all my clothes at thrift stores. I just focused on working and studying. I wanted to make sure I was never in a position where I had to rely on my family again. When I caught a major billing error in one of our client accounts, Elizabeth promoted me to junior consultant. "You caught a mistake that our accountant missed," Elizabeth told me. "I double-checked the numbers," I said. Elizabeth kept giving me more responsibilities. I finished my degree at the end of my third year in Portland. I did not attend a graduation ceremony. I just printed the diploma and put it in a cheap frame on my desk. Elizabeth saw it and promoted me to project manager. I was put in charge of a team of 10 people. The consulting firm grew from 8 employees to 35. We started doing larger development projects and housing grants. That year, we hired a new communications director named Rachel. She sat in the office next to mine, and we became friends. One night, we were eating dinner at our desks while working on a late project. Rachel asked me why I never talked about my family. I told her the entire story. I told her about Thanksgiving, the education fund, and my mother telling everyone I was in a facility. It was the first time I had explained all the details to someone else. Rachel listened to me until I was done. My family told their friends I died in a car crash, Rachel said. They thought that was easier than telling their church group that I am gay. We sat in the office and talked about it for a long time. It was the first time I felt like someone actually understood what I went through. On my birthday that year, I finally opened the wooden box Grandma Margaret had given me. I had carried it with me for 5 years without looking inside. I was avoiding it because opening it meant accepting that she was actually gone. Inside the box, I found a pearl necklace. I also found a photograph of myself when I was 6 years old. It was the only picture of me as a child that I owned. My mother had only ever framed photos of Ashley in our house. At the bottom of the box was a letter written by Grandma Margaret. "Melissa, if you are reading this, I hope you had the courage to leave," the letter said. "Do not let this family hold you back. You do not owe them your life. I also left instructions for your education fund with my lawyer, Mr. Clark. The account details are on the back of this page." I sat on my bed and read the letter a few times. For my entire life, I thought my grandmother wanted me to keep the peace and stay close to my mother. That was what she said during family dinners. But in this letter, she was telling me the exact opposite. She wanted me to get out. During my 5th year in Portland, Elizabeth promoted me to Chief Operating Officer. The firm had expanded to over 100 employees and opened a second office in Seattle. We were managing development programs that helped thousands of families. I was making a very good salary. I lived in my own apartment and drove a reliable car. I was completely financially secure. A regional business magazine interviewed me for an article about leaders in community development. They printed my name, my job title, and a professional photo of me. Elizabeth bought a cake for the office to celebrate when the article was published. I was happy with my life. I never looked at my family's social media pages, and they never tried to contact me. That changed in the spring. I received an email at my work address from my Aunt Barbara. The subject line just said, "From Barbara, please read." I clicked on it. Barbara wrote a few short paragraphs. She apologized for not defending me at Thanksgiving. She said she was afraid of my mother. Then she told me about the money. She said Grandma Margaret's lawyer had set up 2 separate accounts, one for me and one for Ashley. Each required a direct signature to access. My mother had forged my signature on the bank documents, closed my account, and transferred the $12,000 to Ashley. Barbara knew this because she had been the witness when Grandma Margaret originally signed the paperwork. I sat at my desk and looked at the email. The money was not the issue anymore. I made more than that in a month at my current job. The issue was the blatant theft and the fact that my mother called me crazy in front of the whole family just for asking where the money went. I looked up the statute of limitations for fraud in Ohio. It was too late to press charges. The time limit had passed. At the bottom of her email, Barbara added one more detail. She said my mother was chairing a large community fundraiser for our hometown next month, and the whole town was going to be there. A few weeks later, Elizabeth came into my office. "I just spoke with a Pastor Thomas," Elizabeth told me. "He runs a community development board in a town in Ohio. They are hosting a big fundraiser, and they want someone from our firm to be the keynote speaker. I recommended you, since you are from Ohio." I asked Elizabeth what town the fundraiser was in. "It is in Ridgewood," she said. That was my hometown. Pastor Thomas had found our firm online and contacted Elizabeth without realizing I was from there. My mother was the chair of the committee for the exact event I was just asked to speak at. I thought about the letter from Grandma Margaret. I thought about the fake story my mother had been telling the town for 5 years. "I will do it," I told Elizabeth. "Tell Pastor Thomas I accept." 2 weeks before the fundraiser was scheduled to happen, my sister Ashley searched my name on the internet. Barbara later told me exactly why she did it. Ashley had gotten divorced, and her husband had taken most of their savings. She was behind on her mortgage, and the bank was threatening foreclosure. She needed a cosigner for a new loan to save her house. My parents had terrible credit, and Jason was heavily in debt. Ashley searched for my name to see if I was employed, hoping she could convince me to cosign her paperwork. When she searched my name, she found my LinkedIn page. She saw my title as Chief Operating Officer. She found the magazine article. She found my company biography. Barbara said Ashley called our mother immediately. When my mother heard that I was an executive at a real company, she panicked. Her lie about me being in a mental health facility was suddenly a huge liability. That afternoon, my phone started buzzing while I was in a meeting. When I got back to my office, I saw 43 missed calls. They were all from Ohio numbers. Some were from my parents, some were from my siblings. I listened to the voicemails. "Melissa, it is Ashley," the first voicemail said. "I know we have not talked in a long time. I have a serious financial situation and I need your help. Please call me back." "Melissa, this is your father," the next voicemail said. "The family is dealing with some hard times right now. We need you to step up, call us." "This is your mother," the next one said. "I do not know what you are doing out there, but you are still part of this family. We need your help." "Hey, it's Jason," my brother said on his voicemail. "Looks like you are making a lot of money now. I have a business idea and I need some funding. Call me." I listened to every single message. They left 43 voicemails in one afternoon. Not one person apologized for kicking me out. Not one person apologized for stealing my money or lying to the town. Every single message was just asking for cash or a signature. I called Rachel and told her what happened. "My family found me online," I told her. "What are you going to do?" Rachel asked. "I am not going to call them back," I said. "I am just going to go to the fundraiser next week." When I did not return their calls, my family got angry. My mother sent an email to my work address. "After everything I have done to protect your reputation in this town, you are ignoring my calls," my mother wrote. "I told everyone you were getting help. I was right about you being selfish." Ashley sent me a message on LinkedIn telling me I owed her a signature on her loan documents because we were family. Jason posted a public status on Facebook complaining about relatives who get a fancy job title and abandon the people who supported them. I took screenshots of the email, the message, and the post. I saved them in a folder on my computer. I just wanted the proof of how they acted when they wanted something from me. Barbara sent me a text message the day before my flight. "Your mother saw your name in the printed event program," Barbara texted. "She knows you are the speaker. The whole family is going to be there." I flew into Ohio on a Tuesday. I rented a car at the airport and drove to my hometown. I pulled up to the community center. The parking lot was completely full. The building was decorated with large banners and rented tables. I checked in at the front desk. A woman from my mother's church handed me my speaker badge. It said Melissa, Chief Operating Officer. She smiled at me, clearly not recognizing who I was. I walked into the main hall. There were about 200 people sitting at tables. They were local business owners, teachers, and people from my old neighborhood. These were the exact people my mother had been lying to for 5 years. I saw my family sitting at a table near the front. My mother was wearing a nice dress, trying to look important. My father was sitting quietly next to her. Ashley and Jason were looking at their phones. Pastor Thomas walked up to the microphone on the stage. "Thank you all for coming tonight," Pastor Thomas said. "Our keynote speaker tonight works in community development. She grew up in a small town just like ours, and now she is the chief operating officer of a major consulting firm. Please welcome Melissa." I walked up the stairs and stood behind the podium. I looked down at my family's table. My mother's face went completely pale. She grabbed the edge of the table. She looked around the room to see if anyone was watching her. My father looked down at his plate. Ashley put her hand over her mouth. Jason just stared at me. There was no standing ovation. There was no dramatic music. The room just gave standard, polite applause as I adjusted the microphone. I delivered my presentation. I spoke for 20 minutes about infrastructure grants, local housing development, and budget strategies. I showed them the data from my firm. I kept it completely professional. When I reached the end of my notes, I looked out at the audience. "I grew up in this town," I said into the microphone. "I left 5 years ago with a single suitcase. I left because my family stole my education fund and then told everyone in this room that I was locked in a residential psychiatric facility to cover it up." The room went dead silent. It was incredibly uncomfortable. Nobody clapped. Nobody gasped. People just shifted in their chairs and looked at the floor. It was the awkward reality of a small town having its dirty laundry aired in public. I was not in a facility, I told the crowd. I was in Portland going to school and building a career. I just wanted to clear that up. Thank you for your time. I walked off the stage. The silence in the room lasted for several seconds before a low murmur of conversation started. People were whispering and looking directly at my mother's table. I walked toward the exit. The networking hour had started, and people were standing in groups. A few people who remembered me awkwardly said hello as I walked past. My former high school English teacher, Mrs. Davis, just looked at me with wide eyes. My mother pushed through the crowd and stepped in front of me. She forced a stiff smile on her face, completely aware that 20 people were watching us. "Melissa," my mother said, keeping her voice low, "you embarrassed us in front of the whole town." "I just stated the facts," I said. Ashley walked up behind my mother. "We have been trying to call you for days," Ashley said. "We need to talk about my loan." "I listened to your voicemails," I told her. "I am not giving you money, and I am not signing your loan." My father stood a few feet away. "Let us talk about this at home," he said. "I do not have a home here," I said. Jason crossed his arms. "You think you are better than us now." "I think I am done talking to you," I said. I walked around them and went out the front doors. I got into my rental car and drove back to my hotel near the airport. The whole interaction lasted less than 3 minutes. It was not a cinematic showdown. It was just an uncomfortable conversation I was finally able to walk away from. When I got to my hotel room, I opened my laptop. I drafted an email and sent it to my parents and my siblings. "I am putting this in writing so there is no confusion," I typed. "I will not cosign any loans. I will not fund any business ideas. I will not send you money. You stole from me, you lied about me to the entire town for 5 years, and when you finally reached out, it was only because you wanted cash. Do not contact me again." I pressed send, I closed my laptop and went asleep. The next morning, I called Mr. Clark, the lawyer who handled Grandma Margaret's estate. I gave him the account numbers from the wooden box. "Your grandmother made me promise to keep the original paperwork," Mr. Clark told me. "I did not find out your mother forged the signature until the account was already closed. The statute of limitations has passed. I am sorry, Melissa." "I know," I said. "I am not trying to get the money back." Instead of fighting a legal battle I could not win, I contacted the financial aid office at my former university. I set up a permanent annual scholarship using my own salary. I requested that the funds go to students who were estranged from their families and received no financial help. I named it the Margaret Lawson Memorial Scholarship. The university posted the details on their website, along with the photo of me and my grandmother. I wanted her name attached to something positive, rather than the toxic environment my mother had created. A few days later, Barbara called me. "The town has not stopped talking about the fundraiser," Barbara told me. "People are bringing it up at the grocery store and the post office. Pastor Thomas asked your mother to step down from the community board." "Did she do it?" I asked. "Yes," Barbara said. "She told everyone she was resigning to spend more time with her family, but nobody bought it. It is too embarrassing for her to show her face at the meetings." Barbara gave me updates on the rest of them. The fallout was not dramatic, just mundane and predictable. Without a cosigner, Ashley's loan was denied. Her house was foreclosed on by the bank. She packed her belongings into a storage unit and moved back into my old bedroom at my parents' house. She was back exactly where she started. Jason's girlfriend, Emily, saw his public Facebook post calling me ungrateful. She read the comments where people from our town were mocking him for asking his estranged sister for money. Emily broke up with him and moved out of his apartment. Jason deleted the post, but people had already taken screenshots. My father finally stopped defending my mother. According to Barbara, he moved his clothes into the guest bedroom and stopped speaking to Susan unless it was necessary. He did not file for divorce, he just checked out of the relationship entirely. I stayed in Portland. On Sundays, I invite Rachel, Elizabeth, and my old roommate Mark over to my apartment for dinner. We eat pasta and sit around my dining table. It is loud, and we argue about work and television shows, but it is real. I did not receive a grand apology from my family. I did not get my $12,000 back, but I got exactly what I needed. I took away their ability to control my narrative, and I proved that I did not need them to survive. If you enjoyed this story, subscribe to Payback Stories for a new family drama story every day, and I'll see you in the next one.